Hey everybody, how you doing? It's Dave F. I'll be hosting your fourth episode of Boiled as an Owl, and I'll take you through what we're hoping to accomplish, which is to make sense of step 3 in the 12-step program. So, last episode we talked about our venture into hope and what brings us to that hope is the observation of the lack of what it is we want in our lives. We honestly completed step 1 where we admitted we're completely defeated and powerless over an addiction or anything, person, place, whatever. And, we're looking at our lives and we're just like, wow, I am defeated, and there's got to be something better than this. There just has to be. And by now, we're working our program. We're raw. We're jagged around the edges, and we're just in a place that feels like it's never going to get better. And so we have now asked, this higher power to restore us to sanity. And we're working that step 2. We're asking the mind to be restored. We're asking the body to be restored. We're asking our faith to be restored. I mean, it's a lot to wrap your head around and to contemplate when you're literally saying, we're asking a power greater than ourselves to restore us to sanity. So, now we're in step 3 and, we're making a decision to turn our life and our will over to the care of God as we understand God. And that's the key point in the verbiage is God as we understand God. And this is where we usually, if we have sponsorship and we're doing all the right stuff, our sponsor is going to be able to navigate this part for us and say, hey, we know that you're struggling with the concept of a higher power. I know you're struggling with the idea of God because on so many levels, you've probably had a misgiving with God, or you didn't believe in the God that your parents believed in, or the Catholic Church, or Christians, or you name it. And, let's be honest, a lot of times that God that we hear in the religious texts is usually this being, that's going to judge us for the good we've done and the bad we've done and whatever. And the reality is there's thousands of gods out there. So which one's the right one, right? Who knows? I know in my experience that I tend to believe that God is everything. I don't believe in a Christian God or a Catholic God or a Greek God or a Roman God or, an Indian God, whatever you want to say. I just believe that there's a consciousness that supersedes all of this. And my definition of what God is that God's everything, experiencing everything all at once. And it's even experiencing our pain, our joy, our happiness, anything you can conceive of. God is experiencing God's self through us. And I believe we experience God through our experiences here, whether they're mental, physical, spiritual, emotional, whatever. I believe that everything is conducted in such a fashion that prior to this incarnation, we're all like, hey, let's do some really stupid shit to one another so that in some regard, we'll remember who we are through all the pain that we've created with each other. And whether that's a cavalier approach or not, I don't know, but it works for me. I really do. I really think that on some level, we decided that this place we call Earth School is a very intense master's program that puts every curveball, every joy, every defeat, every win, everything imaginable, people, places, and things within our ability to experience it so that we can get clearer and clearer on who we are to become. And unfortunately, some of us get lost along the way. And the funny part about addiction is you're looking to correct the defeat, the depression, the grief, the sadness, whatever, the resentments, the fears, all that stuff. You're looking outside of yourself to correct those things. So what do we usually do? We use drugs. We use alcohol. We use prescription meds. We use sex. We use food. We use, you name it, we use it. And that helps us to change the way we feel. And a lot of us like to use chemicals to change the way we feel because we can't understand how to navigate the feelings that we do have without something that's going to change the way we feel. And that is why 12-step program works so well, right? So we're on this journey and we're now in step 3. We're learning how to surrender. And the idea of the 12-step program in and of itself is that we completely resign ourselves to absolute and utter personal responsibility and ultimately faith beyond anything human, and ultimately surrender even further into that concept to a power greater than ourselves, you know? And we want to receive a life that's just different from the ragtag life we were living up until this point. And so it becomes imperative to truly begin to create a God of your understanding, a higher power, if you struggle with the word God, of your understanding. The God of my understanding ends up being the very thing that can create peace and serenity in my life. It can guide me to making better decisions, to become more patient, more grounded, more centered. This higher power loves me and helps me get through my days. Because up until this point, I didn't have much humility. I was trying to run the show. I was trying to do everything I could in my power, my limited power, to run the show and to try to get all the things in life that I thought I needed and I thought that I wanted and what have you. And this good mind of mine, this very alcoholic mind, if you will. Like I said before, I didn't have the bodily obsession, but boy, is my mind a fun place to live. And in that mind of mine, I have to give up this idea of control in every aspect of my life, because the only control I have is over me. I need to learn how to control my emotions by feeling them, and ultimately, in the beginning stages, living, minute to minute, and being so focused on, I'm thinking that way again, and I need to give this up to my higher power, right? So a lot of people in sobriety are living minute to minute, day to day, sometimes hour to hour. It's amazing. And, you have to learn how to surrender. And in order to do that, you have to have a complete shift in mindset. And that shift in mindset comes with the ability to truly get to a point where when you're taking your will back and you're trying to direct the show again, you stop and you start praying. And that's why the serenity prayer is so wonderful. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Your will, not mine, be done, right? And this will piece is a co-creation. I think a lot of people get weirded out by the whole like, oh, I'm letting this power greater than myself dictate my life. And yes, that's a thing. However, you have to co-create together with this higher power. You can't just sit on your ass and pray every single day, hey, God, give me this thing, right? Because it's been in my experience that when your focus is on the lack of something, all you keep focusing on is the fact that you don't have it. So a lot of people tell you to fake it till you make it kind of stuff, in this program, especially the first 3 steps. Act as if, this higher power is restoring you to sanity. Act as if you're finally making the decision and then going to take the action to create the change. Because a lot of us are so programmed to wallow in self-pity and to stay there for so long that we become irritable and discontent. We get angry, and then we start the comparison game. We start the blame game, you name it, right? And we start getting so upset because, why is everybody else getting better? When is it my turn? And that's where hope can be a trap. Because when you have hope, that simply means that you're expecting a change of something that you see the lack of in your life. And if you don't utilize the program the way it's laid out, you can stay stuck in this hope spiral where you're always going to be hoping for something to be better and never actually just surrendering and saying, oh my God, my life is pretty damn good. I might not have X, Y, Z, but I got a roof over my head. And even if you don't have a roof over your head, maybe you're sleeping on a couch somewhere, or you're in a sober home, or what have you. Maybe you're living at your parents' house, or, a relative's house or something. And, you lost everything. And in that losing of everything, you are just so consumed with the fact that you don't have what you need. But let's say you're waking up every day. Let's say you're at least able to get some food in your belly, and, maybe things are dire in the moment, but you're not drinking and you're not drugging, and your brain is clearing up and you're being restored to sanity, right? And you're in this beautiful aspect of surrender where you're like, okay, I did it my way. My way doesn't work. Let's try it your way. And there's a saying, I can't, he can. I think I'll let him. That's the first 3 steps. And I love that one because I honestly, 5 years ago, was so lost. I had no idea what I was going to do. I was so sad and depressed and lonely. I didn't know what to do. And so I went to meetings. I just went to meetings. Sometimes I went to 2 or 3 meetings a day. Was I trading one addiction for another? Yeah, I was. But here's the best part. The meetings weren't causing my body any harm, and they weren't causing my mind any harm. And I was actually able to express what was happening within. And by doing so, it was creating an air of vulnerability. And in those moments was surrendering all of this will that I had, this self-will run riot, because if you were telling me things were going to get better, I didn't believe you. I didn't think anything was going to get better. I really didn't. And it was in the decision of surrendering, truly surrendering, really like getting on my knees. You hear a lot of people say, oh, get on your knees. Sometimes I wonder if people actually do. I don't as much anymore, but in the first 3 years, my God, I was on my knees a lot. I really got to a point where I was very contemplative, and I was meditating, and I was on my knees, and I was asking for help. And not even asking for help, just more like, hey, could you guide me to where I need to be and go and do so that I can get to the next step of your will for me? Because the will I had for myself was so limited and just so small that I couldn't grasp anything bigger, right? And so I believe that God, source, higher power is infinite. And if you tap into that infinite power and you start coming from the perspective that anything's possible instead of, oh, yeah, right, that's not going to happen for me. But yeah, I'm looking around at all these people in these meetings and they got something amazing. This guy was living in his car and now he's got an apartment and he's got his kids back in his life. And 3-4 years later, oh my God, the guy's living in a house now and he's got a great business and he's doing so well for himself. And I just found that stuff to be so amazing, right? And what we got to remember is when we're in recovery, right? We're not in recovery because life was going well. We're in recovery because we basically, destroyed our relationships with our significant others, with our parents, with our kids, with ourselves, with society, you name it. Some of us go pretty far out and really destroy things. Some of us have lesser bottoms where, we've reeled it in on time. And that's the other thing, right? With a 12-step program, if you're willing to admit the defeat before you have to get to the complete and utter defeated aspect of things that cause people to go into detox or to go into liver failure or whatever, then you have to be in a place where you're understanding that you got yourself the help you needed in time without having to fall so far onto your face that the only way to go was up. And I consider myself lucky because I was one of those people where I knew that if I was to keep going in the direction I was going, that I was probably going to be dead in another 4 or 5 years. So it's been 5 years of sobriety. If I had kept going where I ended my drinking and drugging 5 years ago, I don't think I'd be alive right now, honestly. I think I would have killed my liver. I would have killed my pancreas, and I probably would have just died because the last 5 months before I got sober, I was drinking. I was drinking to kill an elephant-sized pain in my body, and that wasn't working either. So I don't know. I just feel myself to be extremely lucky, and 2 years ago, like I said, I wanted to create a podcast because I wanted to help people with their journey who might not be sold on meetings or, not getting their butts there on their own. And I don't know. I feel like my higher power definitely moves me in the directions that I need to go. I know for me, this last year, I kind of sunk back into poverty consciousness because I spent a lot of time taking my will back this year. A lot of the feelings and the emotions that I was having in the earlier parts of my life, in my teens and 20s, that I never was able to actually process correctly, they started resurfacing because I hadn't dealt with them. And that's why this program is so amazing, because you'll hit a wall, you'll hit a plateau, you'll hit, a bump in the road, and you dig deeper, right? So if you're hurting, go to more meetings. The only reason you go to meetings really is for the fellowship, so you won't sink into the loneliness, right? And when you're at the meetings, being truthful and honest. You don't have to share everything. I do, because I don't care what anyone thinks about me. But like, even if you share a couple things in a meeting and then you spend the rest with your network, right? You're helping yourself get clearer on what it is that you're going through. And then I really truly believe that when you're in those spots, it's another chance to work your step 3, no matter how many years of sobriety you have, right? Because you don't just do the 12 steps and then you're done. It's a consistent working of the program, right? And that surrender is almost like a daily thing. I really believe it. I think it takes every single day of your life to truly have honesty and then surrender, right? So when I don't know, when I was going through my step 3, I did it in a hotel lobby with my sponsor, and I was pretty broken. And I took my step 3, I'd say, in August of 2020, because for that first month that my sponsor and I were together, which was July, he was just walking me through the steps. And I remember praying with him, the step 3 prayer, and I was moved to tears, and I felt this power come into my body that it was like fire. I was on fire for a good 20, 30 minutes, and I was in tears, and I was really, really feeling it. And in that moment, I just surrendered, and I just asked God to truly do for me what I couldn't do for myself. And I just really sat with that for a while, for at least a good couple weeks after that whole burning bush experience. Again, another spiritual awakening. So we're talking having had one in January of 2020, and then having another one 8 months later, working with my sponsor. And what was amazing was, in that moment, I finally truly did feel like a child of God. And I had this understanding that if God is everything, right, that means God's good, bad, indifferent, you name it. And I believe everyone that comes in and out of our lives we're just mirrors. And this isn't like my belief. This is, I think, a universal belief that people tend to have once they start attaining some semblance of spiritual awakenings. And I watch people, their behavior, and when I understand the reflection they're giving me, I get to see what my beliefs are in that moment. I've gotten to a point where when I am triggered by someone else's behavior, I'm starting to understand that I still have aspects of that behavior within myself. And because we can sit here and justify our anger, and we can sit here and justify our misgivings and how we approach things, we can ultimately say, well, if that person did it, that's them, and we flip out, right? And then that's the other thing, right? So 5 years has gone by. In the beginning, I would get super triggered by people. Now when I get triggered by people, I can sit down and go, oh, wow, I'm feeling powerless right now because of this person and their behavior. What is this trying to tell me? And then I go, hey, dear God, can you restore me to sanity real quick? Because I am out of my fucking mind right now, and I'm doing things that I used to do 5 years ago, and I'm going to surrender to you now, right? And then there's all this other stuff where you can, through discipline and awareness in further steps down the road, you can actually get to a point where you discern your behavior and you go, or you can discern your actions, right, and your behaviors, and you can actually get a real-time estimate of what it is that's going on. And if you just take pause, right, and you think about what's going on, and you keep it really super simple, you can actually get a prayer in real quick, and you can ask your higher power, which is directly linked to your higher self, because you're a byproduct of that higher power. And then you're co-creating a change together with you and your higher power, your awareness, whatever. And you're surrendering in the actual moment. You're co-creating the space to make a different choice, right? And if in that moment you realize that choice is not something you can do, you know what you do? Get the hell out of the room. Go do some burpees, or go do some push-ups, or go for a walk, go for a run. Get out of the situation real quick, because in that moment, you can recreate neural pathways in your brain through a co-creation with your higher power, right? So that in that moment of surrender, where you admit that you're powerless over whatever reaction you're experiencing in your life, you can then make a decision to turn it over to your higher power. So that's the practicality of using the 12-step program in your daily life, not just in an hour of a meeting. But it takes years to get to that, to hone those skills. And so I really feel so blessed and so honored to be on this journey to help other people in recovery. And I am so grateful that this program came into my life, and that my sponsor was dropped into my lap, and that my higher power gave a shit about me. And the reason I know that is because when I sat down to write all the attributes of that higher power, when I am not beating myself up, and I'm not at the point where I'm trying so hard to be the guy who can call himself out on all his bullshit, but actually see it, correct it, and then live it, and then give myself the grace and the empathy even to move through it, I am always flabbergasted at the results. And I love my friends on this journey too, the ones that I know that when I'm acting like an asshole, they're going to lovingly tell me I am. And then I can see where they're coming from, and then ultimately surrender into the grace of God. And I think that's the approach that most people need to take, versus, there's this being in the sky that's going to do everything for me, because we're in a very physical place. We have bodies, and God will help you, but you need to bring the shovel. You need to actually bring the piece of the action to take, because you can have all the vision and all the insight and all the things you want, but you have to take action to get to those dreams. All dreams require action. You can't just sit on your ass and hope. And that's why I said in the beginning, be careful for hoping, because if you're hoping, you're focusing on the lack. And when you're focusing on the lack, you're most likely telling yourself, well, there's no way this is going to happen for me. I'm not lucky enough for that to happen. Those people have it better than I do. And then you're going to get stuck in this trap, which will eventually turn to anger anxiety, and then ultimately probably apathy, where you don't even give a crap about anything anymore. And you get stuck in apathy for a long time where you are just motionless and you're just looking at everything and hating it all. And I'm so fortunate now in my program that I get into apathy a lot, but I also get out of it very quickly too. And when you have people that you can bitch to within reason, a lot of times they'll call you on your bullshit. And that's the beauty of it. Because if you stay in the energy of, dumping all the time, where you're just dumping all your crap onto people, you're basically going to keep all of your problems in place, because you're just going to keep talking about them over and over and over and over and over. And, you got to step 3 that shit. Make a decision to turn your will and your life over to God as you understand him. And again, / higher power. So I hope this opened up your eyes a little bit, made it a little bit more clear. And don't get me wrong, there's so much information out there on 12 steps. I'm not the last guy or the first guy to ever bring this information. This is my interpretation of it. And I just love this stuff. I really do. And I love helping people. I'm a licensed massage therapy by day. And I work with a lot of people. I work with a lot of people's broken bodies and trauma. And I was so fortunate to have gotten into this gig like 24 years ago, and I still do it. I see like 30, 40, 50 people a week, and it is the most amazing job I could have ever had, and I'm so blessed to have it. And this is another passion of mine. This is where, for me, like the real work, bringing the message to people and helping them out. So with that, I'll end with the set aside prayer. Dear God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the big book, and the 12 steps, everything I think I know about the program, the fellowship, all spiritual terms, and especially about you, God, so I may have an open mind and a new experience. Please help me see the truth. Amen. And with that, I will leave you. And I'll see you in episode 5. I hope you have a wonderful day.